Joining us now, MSNBC Capitol Hill reporter Kevin Fry, Susan Del Percio, Republican strategist. Also with us, Basil Smikle, Democratic strategist and professor of practice at the School of Professional Studies at Columbia University. They are both our MSNBC political analysts. And Kevin, another round of votes today as both parties are still totally dug in. Is there any end in sight to this standoff?
Quite frankly, no. And I mean, you saw the Office of Management and Budget today go so far as to essentially tweet that they're battening down the hatches and preparing for the long haul. And you've seen really the same familiar tit for tat between the parties just playing out today. As you just played that clip from Speaker Mike Johnson earlier today, he was asked, why not just engage? Why not negotiate now that clearly there is no movement on the other side also? And he said that I'm doing the right thing. And he argued, I don't have a strategy in all of this. At the same time, across the aisle, you're hearing Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, the top Democrat on the House side, going so far to suggest that Trump has not given Speaker Johnson permission to engage, and thus the push and pull continues. As you mentioned, there is a vote that is coming up later this evening in the Senate yet again. They didn't have votes over the course of the weekend, but they will be back. We expect that vote to fail. We expect a handful of Democrats perhaps to join with the Republicans like they have in the past, but certainly not enough to meet that 60-vote filibuster threshold. And one other thing that's important to note this week as we get going is that some of the pinch points have been kind of lifted that might have forced Democrats to the table, including the one coming up just later this week when the troops were expected to miss a paycheck. Well, Trump has now said they're going to pay. And then, of course, they're also moving ahead with providing funding for women's and babies through the WIC program. So things that could have kind of put the pain on Democrats have been at least removed from the scenario for the moment.
So, Basil, it seems like, to Kevin's point there, and Kevin, thank you for your reporting, that the fact that they found the money to pay the military, the fact that they are now compensating for WIC, it seems as though this would have been a win for Republicans optically, but is this actually providing Democrats with some cover to continue their fight on health care?
Well, as Kevin said, I think it does provide that kind of cover. And first and foremost, I'm glad that the money was found to be able to do those things, particularly for the military that actually does live check to check. They're not making tremendous amounts of money. And so it also indicates to a lot of voters that when you want to find the money to do things, you'll find it, right? And that's it. That's at practically every level of government. And I think that's one of the things that Democrats could continue to hammer home in this period of time, to say that, look, Republicans can find money to do the things they want to protect the people they care about. Why don't they care about you in this moment on these issues, particularly health care? Speaking
of health care, so we're hearing from Punchbowl and other sources that Republicans are quietly behind closed doors trying to ideate on a way to get some kind of movement on health care. Is this a sign that Republicans know it's a losing issue to be stymieing those subsidies?
It absolutely is a losing issue for them, and it's one with a clock on it. And I can't emphasize enough how important a clock is on something when it comes to getting things done in Washington. Because come November 1st is open enrollment. That's now. So people this month of October are getting notices that their insurance premiums are doubling, tripling in some cases. And next month, they're going to have to start committing to that. And that's where I think the Republicans find themselves in the most difficult position, because those increases become real. And they know, I think that's why Trump's trying to front load some of the, quote, pain that he talks about, because the longer the Democrats hold on to that November 1st date, I think they will be successful. The Democrats also have one other thing that I think the public will recognize. You can't trust President Trump to follow through on a deal. And what I mean by that is, if they said pass a clean continuing resolution, which is what the Republicans have done, and typically what the Democrats want, pass a clean CR, then we'll get to the issue at hand. You can't trust Trump that he'll actually do the vote then, and then not try and take credit for all of it, even if he does. So it's a smart negotiation tactic for the Democrats. The question is how long can the Republicans hold on? And that's why I think they're paying the troops and the WIC program, because they can't take much more pain on this.
Basil, this is obviously affecting so many facets of the federal government. Kristi Noem says that it's not going to impact the National Guard, but we've seen furloughs of airport workers and other essential workers. But this is essentially letting the White House handpick who's essential, who's not. And for Russ Vought to make the case, if you're at home and we don't need you, maybe we really don't need you. Does this backfire on Republicans at some point? And are Democrats harnessing the moment to make the message here?
Well, I think it can, and we're already starting to see that. It's important to remember that there is a really important gubernatorial race in the state of Virginia, where you have a lot of workers who have been impacted by the layoffs, by the furloughs. You've got not only government workers, but government contractors. So this is really playing out in a state that's purplish, as some have been said, right? As some have said. So yes, so there is that dynamic. And to Susan's point, you know, when the president is making these decisions about what is essential, what isn't, there was an article the other day that talked about this, that he sometimes makes these, has these negotiations and makes these deals without this sort of moral obligation in the negotiation. So it's about just making the actual deal. So what I think that potential outcome here is that a deal could be struck, but who is it actually benefiting? Who is it going to be good for? And if Democrats can make the argument that it continues to benefit the rich, which is where a lot of his positions lean, then there's still going to be more pain for the average American voter.
So, Susan, if we keep seeing the deep cuts, could that start to look bad for Republicans, as though this was the plan all along?
It could, and it's also like really reminiscent of the Doge cuts. And when you know, just to give you an idea, like they just happen indiscriminately at the CDC. About 700 workers were fired that are now deemed essential, so they're trying to get them back. That was about half of the layoffs they put in last week. So it seems scattered. It seems that it's meant to punish Democrats, and I don't think the public really likes to see that kind of look on its government.
Yeah, the punitive aspect of that can't be diminished, and also the impact on real Americans that we're seeing. So I just want to get both of your perspectives, Baz, I'll start with you, on whether it's rare to see in a moment of government crisis where our government is shut down, the president's sights are clearly in the Middle East, dealing with Ukraine. We're going to have the Argentine president here later today. He's clearly focused on foreign policy. The American people know that the government's shut down. Is that rare to see?
It's not rare to see, and a lot of voters don't generally vote on foreign policy. Obviously, what's happening with Israel and Gaza has been affecting campaigns. But I will say, again, to my earlier point, country has a lot of money to bail out Argentina. What about the farmers?
Yeah, and that was the one. That's the one that really I think will stick in the craw of a lot of people, is the Argentine bailout. Meeting with Zelensky again, it sort of goes a bit against his base, his wishes right now to help keep funding Ukraine, and what the president did in the Middle East, which I think was.
The ongoing government shutdown has evolved far beyond a basic budget disagreement. What started as a dispute over spending priorities has now hardened into a full-scale political standoff. Both parties are refusing to budge, not because they can't find a solution, but because they see strategic advantage in letting the other side take the fall. Republicans, under the clear influence of former President Donald Trump, are using the shutdown as a pressure tool. Speaker Mike Johnson has shown little willingness to move forward without Trump's green light, which reveals a fundamental problem. The real power isn't sitting in the Speaker's chair, it's coming from outside the Capitol. That weakens Johnson's ability to negotiate independently and locks Republicans into a position that is more about loyalty to one man than pragmatic governance. Democrats, meanwhile, are betting that time is on their side. Historically, Republicans have taken the brunt of public blame during shutdowns, and Democrats are counting on that dynamic to repeat itself. They're not just standing firm out of principle, they're making a calculated political decision. By allowing the shutdown to stretch, they hope Republicans will crack first under public pressure. But this isn't a clean political win. Democrats may have public opinion on their side for now, but a long standoff risks creating a wave of frustration that can easily turn against both parties. Republicans' decision to keep paying the military and fund the WIC program isn't generosity, it's strategy. They're removing removing some of the most emotionally sensitive pain points that could turn the public sharply against them. By softening the impact on troops and vulnerable families, they're buying themselves more time to hold the line.
Just to give
but
you an idea,
healthcare is the real pressure cooker. Premium increases hitting Americans in November will turn an abstract political fight into a personal economic problem. That's where Republicans could lose the narrative quickly, because healthcare is one of their most vulnerable issues with voters. On top of this, President Biden's visible focus on foreign matters, including financial aid to Argentina and continued support for Ukraine, creates a damaging perception. It suggests Washington can find money for other countries, but not for its own citizens during a shutdown. That kind of image can cut through partisan spin and resonate with voters on a gut level. The bigger, more dangerous issue here is how routine shutdowns have become. What should be treated as a national failure has become just another tactical move in Washington's political chess game. Every time this happens, trust in government erodes further. It tells Americans their leaders are more focused on point scoring than problem solving. This shutdown won't end because of a sudden outbreak of leadership or goodwill. It will end when the political cost of holding out becomes greater than the cost of compromise. Until that moment arrives, millions of Americans will keep living in uncertainty, paying the price for a fight they never chose to be part of.